This is being live streamed. There's nothing like Hungarian TV to get you out of bed on a Saturday morning when you have to. The session is being live streamed. So we have an online audience. Can you wave your hands in the air so the online audience can see them? We've got loads of people in the room. Fantastic. Great. Okay, and we have a real audience. Those of you who are, thank you very much. That's great. Those of you who are real, thank you very much for getting up on a Saturday morning. I'm sure you've been up for ages. You've been to Evan's session. You've done your breathing meditation exercises already, and you're here. Very good. Okay, this talk is a little bit ironic. You can see from the title that the idea is to be confident, to stand up and give a presentation. Please, no, she doesn't want to come in. Okay. Please come in. There are some seats at the back, some seats in the middle. Make yourselves at home. Okay. So just to check that you're awake and you're really here, not just kind of virtually, but for real as well, could you put your hand up if at this conference you're giving or you have given a talk? Okay, hands up online. Oh, somebody, okay, fine. Okay, good. Could you give me a show of hands if you've given a talk at a conference or in front of a group of people in the last 6 months? Okay, a few more people. Good, quite a few more people. Hands up if you've ever given a talk. Okay, so hands up if you've never given a talk. Okay, so we have somebody here who really needs a little bit of support and confidence, maybe to help the people that she works with, actually, to give confidence. Some people love the spotlight. They love standing up in front of a group of people. I'm not one of those people, but I'm going to do my very best today. What I hope to be able to do is to give you a few tips and so on that will help you, either you personally when you're in this situation, or how you can help the people you're working with. This might be students at probably secondary, maybe not primary school, and maybe clients, students you work with in a business context. And they're quite different. We're going to look at some of those. I've given lots of talks at conferences. It's a kind of singing for your supper approach. I like going to conferences because that's where I learn, that's where I get to steal ideas from other people and try them out myself. And when I worked for years and years at International House here, the only way to get to a conference, to be paid, to have my expenses covered, put it that way, not paid to go to the conference, but to have my flight or train fare covered, was actually to do a talk with the IH logo slapped on every slide. And that way, they covered my expenses. I did my little bit of talking, and I got to go to all the other sessions. And all that chit-chat in the coffee breaks, that's also when you learn lots. So that was my benefit. And I used to choose a topic that I was interested in, so I would have to research something, and then I would actually benefit from the talk I was doing as well. But you'll know if you've given a talk that many, many things can go wrong. And funnily enough, there's something different that causes a challenge every time. You can't imagine all the different things that can happen in a talk unless you've given one. But you would be surprised at how many different things can happen. Evan was just saying this morning that he started his talk with everybody nearly asleep because of the meditation thingy that went on beforehand. So he had an immediate, spontaneous, let's wake up, little half-second slot at the beginning. But there are other things, more technical things that can go wrong. At a conference I was talking at years ago now, 2002 in London, it was the beginnings of PowerPoint, and I wasn't convinced that it was going to work. I had my laptop, I had a pen drive. There wasn't a cloud I could put my presentation on or anything like that, or Dropbox or anything. So I printed off every slide onto an OHT, which I heavily added to my luggage. I took all that with me. I took everything with me. And still, and I can't remember for the life of me what went wrong, but something went wrong. So there are all sorts of things that can go wrong. But let's put this in a bigger context. What is a presentation? Are you all right with the lights? If you need to put a light off, let me know. Yeah? What is a presentation. I'm going to talk very little bit about this, and then talk about a very brief Facebook survey that I was involved in. And it was a brief survey because things that happen on Facebook tend to be fairly short and sharp. And then I'm going to tell you what my top tips are for having the confidence to stand up and talk. So I'm going to read out a couple of things that a presentation may or may not be, and I'd like you to decide whether you think these are something we could call a presentation. So this is a little message. Maybe a presentation has a message in it. So if you think, I'll read my list, if you think these are presentations, just wave or nod or something. Okay? So here's one. Reporting back on a meeting. Is that a presentation? We've got a few now.
Presentation of your opinion, idea.
Reporting back on a meeting. Yeah, you're giving your opinion. Yeah, it might be neutral, it might be opinionated. Making a proposal. Okay. Trying to persuade your girlfriend, boyfriend, partner to go to see film X and not film Y. It can be. You might want to think about, how are you going to persuade them? Yeah? Showing someone how to do something. Yeah, probably has a procedure. Yeah? Teaching a class. So we've all given presentations. Okay. Telling someone you've just met what you do, what your job is. Well, if you've done it before, and if you've thought about actually what it could be a presentation. You might do it better if you plan it. Yeah? Describing a project? Probably. Asking your boss for time off work. Well, you might want to think about how you're going to do that. Yeah? And it could be a very mini little presentation. I think all these are presentations. Okay, so you need to make sure, whatever you're doing, that your presentation has a little message. It may be something new, but it doesn't have to be something new. It could be a different angle to look at something old, so a new perspective on something. But you need to make sure that if you're in a context like this, that the people who are at your presentation leave the room afterwards with something they didn't have when they came in. However small that might be, a something. Now, you might change something in the people you're talking to. I'll talk a little bit more about this afterwards. It could be you're changing their knowledge, you're giving them more information. It could be you're changing their attitude, their perspective on something, which might lead to a change in behaviour. So it might be one of those things, it might be all of them. Okay. So, if you teach in a secondary school, could you just let me know? Okay, so about a third of people. Okay, and do you ask your students to give presentations? Yeah, it's a very Hungarian thing to do. It might be a very Prussian thing to do, I'm not sure. But I think it's a very Hungarian thing to do. Where do you find guidance? How do you help your students? What do you give them? Or do you just say, Monday morning, presentation on topic X? Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We collect estimates together, what to include, and how to evaluate.
Uh-huh. That's nice, that bit at the end. Uh-huh. Okay. Sometimes there's a bit of guidance in a course book, but not often for secondary school students. But you might tell the students to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and so on. And talking about it in class and giving them time to prepare at home isn't a bad idea. What about in business English? How many of you are teaching students who have to give presentations at work? Okay, about another third. Okay, and do you have tips and guidance? Where does help come for students giving presentations in a business context?
Students of the pedagogical faculty, they also do presentations.
So also at the university. Okay, fair enough. Where do you get tips? How do you help students?
I would have sample presentation videos.
Like TED or something?
TED or...
TED presentations often break all the rules of the classic presentation, and yet they're very good. But it's very nice to watch the TED things and analyse what makes it good, what makes it less good. They're always very good. But examples, I think, are good. What else? Any other sorted?
Congress presentations. They call it Congress presentations, if that's the stuff they need.
They call it?
Congress presentations.
Congress?
Yes, Congress is nice to me.
Okay. And where do you get support to help them?
Well, sometimes it's information material as well, both for language
Yep.
and for answers or for structure.
Okay, nice, good. And in front, you were something.
I've just read a book on Steve Jobs' presentations, and so I improved my teaching skills, so I get materials for books as well.
Nice.
I think that's a good teacher, how to present.
I think we don't have to be stuck to language teaching materials at all. I mean, there's so much out there, and I think the more we can use, the better. In my experience, many of the business English course books that I've looked at or tried to source for presentation skills have lists of phrases, how to start, how to move on, how to change direction. All this is important and it's helpful, but you don't need 10 ways to do just one thing. Obviously, a student needs to find the right kind of phrase, something that they're comfortable with. And sometimes, what the PowerPoint slides should look like or what they shouldn't look like, and so on. Okay. A recent survey on Facebook, this was something that Lewis Lansford initiated, and he asked people, I think he was trying to write a book or maybe an e-book, and he wanted people's ideas, so he didn't have to think of them himself. He wanted ideas on what makes a good presentation. Let me tell you some of the things that came up. Check the IT works. Get your timing right. Make sure that the font size, the images are good. Tell participants if they're going to get a handout and when. Think about how you're going to deal with questions. Are these important? You think these are useful? I think they're very useful. Tell your audience how they're going to benefit. I think that was my little voluntary offering, contribution. Get to the meat, cut the intro. These are all things from this Facebook survey. Be natural. Use lots of pictures. Useful? Good stuff? Good stuff. I think those are all good, but for me, they're not enough to actually enable me to stand here without feeling super nervous. I think there's more to it than that. So they are important, but I'm looking at confidence building. What are you most frightened of?
Technology going wrong.
Outside the world of giving presentations, what are you most frightened of? Spiders.
Sorry.
I saved a friend of mine from a spider the other day. She was extraordinarily relieved, and I thought it was no big deal. I had a very large glass. Heights, the dark, nuclear war, losing your job. I mean, it kind of depends on the economic climate too. But you probably know, because this is an old survey, that actually speaking in public is one of the top fears people have. It's this, oh my God, very scary. More people are scared of speaking in public than they are of spiders, of losing their job, of all these other things. So, what is the most difficult thing about giving a presentation? Let me list you some things that I think are important. The right topic. Now, in a secondary school, you may ask students to choose, or you may impose a topic. In a business context, actually it's probably given. But there's more to a topic than just the topic. You need to know what you're going to say about it. Yeah? And very important, you need to make sure that there's a structure, a logical structure. Now, that's important for you so that you can organise what you want to say. But it needs to be made overt. I think your audience need to know what you're following, what direction you're taking, so that they can follow. When you watch a film, you like to know how long it is. Is it 90 minutes, or is it an epic 2.5-hour film? You like to pace yourself. And I think the same thing goes with a presentation. You want to know when you can take a minute out, zoom back in again, and so on. Okay? I hope you're not taking any minutes out, but okay. Very importantly, how to start. And even more importantly, how to finish. And also you want to engage your audience, keep them involved, and I think one of the most difficult things to handle is it's just me. And how are you going to deal with that? And very often actually getting your audience involved, which I did right at the very beginning, just gives me a split second to check I have what I've got here. Okay, so let's have a look at some top tips. So a good idea. Let me just check how we're doing for time. Okay. Top tips. An idea is great. An idea is really important, and the right idea is important, but you need to have an angle on the idea. Now, for example, sometimes in secondary school contexts, I've seen these sorts of things. My last holiday. Yeah? This is obviously what Barbie does every September, yeah? My last holiday. Easy? Well, no, actually. I think it's quite hard. You know, what do you want to know about my last holiday? What do I want to tell you about my last holiday? Yeah? So maybe we can actually just tighten the bolt a little bit and give it an angle to the best part, or something I'll never forget about. Okay? My favourite book. Again, it's kind of, what do you want, what shall I say? It's a little bit difficult. Maybe I can give it a little bit more focus, and I'm sure you can come up with better, focus than this. A film I've seen recently. I might want to give it an angle, yeah? I'll give you an angle on that in a moment. So I'm sure you could come up with some angles on this. I'm not going to go into this detail now. We'll keep moving. But not just a topic, but get students to maybe choose a different angle, or to elicit from them how can they really get into that topic. So this is my first tip, and I'll leave that with you for coffee or lunch. Getting attention. Perhaps not dyeing your hair yellow, red and green, but effective ways of getting attention. Can you remember, what did I do at the beginning of this talk? Did I get your attention? I've got it now. What did I do at the very beginning? How did I know you were paying attention? It was a hands up thing, yeah? Now, I don't care who puts their hand up, for what or when. It really doesn't matter. I mean, actually I do, because I wanted to know who's on it. That's not true. I do really. But it was a double whammy. I really wanted to make sure I had you on board. And I do this nearly every time. It's very boring, but it's not always the same people in every presentation, so it kind of works. It's terribly simple, because no one has to say anything. Some people don't like speaking as when they're involved in the audience. So it's a very quick one. I didn't ask you to stand up or slap your hands together or anything awful like that. Yeah, it was much simpler. It's great. Okay? But there are lots of different ways to get attention. Did you know? Questions. If it's a good one. Hands up who? This is my favourite. Maybe an anecdote. Did I tell you an anecdote? I told you about when I made 35 OHTs in London for a presentation. Something shocking. Well, I don't have anything shocking to say today. I tend not to tell jokes because they've got to be funny, and that can be tricky. So there are a number of things you can do, but think about at the beginning. Attention. How are you going to do it? Okay, and don't do it with pink hair. Yeah, it's not really going to do the job. Okay? And for time, we won't do this, but if you were to take one of those topics, how could you get attention on the topic? My favourite book is one I bought for 50 forints at the market. It's not actually, but it could be. Okay. Some people say that a presentation is a present. It's kind of touchy-feely, and that's fine. A presentation for me is actually something that you are going to benefit from, something you take away. Do you know what this stands for? This W-I-I-F-Y. What's in it for you? What's in it for you? Not me. I know what's in it for me. Getting up early on Saturday. What's in it for you? How are you going to benefit? Okay? And you've got to think right at the beginning and all the way through your planning, how are my audience going to benefit from this? If I can't answer that question, they're going to disappear and go and have coffee somewhere else, because why not? That's a benefit. Yeah? So you need to be able to answer that question. And it's different from what is my aim. Obviously, when you give a presentation, you have an aim. But that's not the same as what's in it for you. For example, the aim of my presentation today is to give you 7 tips for you to use, or for you to pass on for somebody else to use. You might not use them all, but maybe one of them will help you or someone you're working with do a presentation. Yeah? My aim for you, so the what's in it for you, is that actually you might think, yeah, okay, I think I will do a talk at that conference. I will stand up. I have the confidence, because actually I'm going to try out this little top tip. Yeah? So it's a slightly different angle on those, my aim and my aim for you. Yeah? I mentioned before, you might change knowledge in people if you're giving them more information. Or you might change their attitude, or maybe their behaviour. Yeah? So if somebody then thinks, oh, I can do a talk somewhere, I'll do it. Or I'll do X, Y, Z at the next staff meeting. That's changing behaviour as well. Okay, moving on. We've had an idea, we've had attention, we've had something to take away. Number 4 is structure. How do you organise what you're going to say? Any thoughts? How do you, when you've got a load of stuff you're going to tell people, how do you think of how you're going to put it in order? What kind of order you use?
So for me, it's very important how you start, as you said, and how you finish, because
Yep.
that's what people remember best.
Right, and what about the middle? How do you sort out the middle?
Okay, so I know that people just sometimes get sleepy, and they just give the answer. You need something to do their attention to something, to get them back.
Okay.
For example, just come to my mind Jenny Oliver's presentation on TED. You remember he just put a beerware in the middle of the stage and poured some sugar on the stage. Things like, oh, of course you can't do things like that all the time, but something that...
So you might punctuate your talk with little bits which are going to get your audience on board. Okay.
Or pause, or,
Okay, nice. Any other ideas for structuring, systems for structuring?
And
Could be.
on the purpose of your presentation, if you want to describe something,
Yes.
introduce something, and that presentation may have a different structure than...
It really does depend on what your aim is. You're right. That's very important. So purpose does matter. Okay, let me give you some examples. Some people tell the audience what they're going to talk about it, summarise, and say what they've talked about it. Okay, so let's say it 3 times. Could be a series of W8 questions. Yeah? Why is this important? How can we do it? And a 3rd question, maybe 3, maybe 4 questions. Yeah? Okay, if you have a look at the handout I gave you, you've got this, and at the top of the piece of paper you've got structures at the top. This is my moment to disappear for a coffee joke. Okay? Have you all got a piece of paper which says structures at the top? Here you can see 8 different structures. Now you might wonder what they mean, so I've given you a definition below. Can you match what these structure names are with the definition? I've done 3 because it's Saturday morning. Yeah? So see if you can do 3 more. Okay? Nudge your neighbour, do it together. Once you've done 3 more, put your hand out, wave your hand around, then I know you're done. Could you just pass those 2 bits of paper back? We're just looking at the exercise called structures at the top. 3? Great. Anyone else done 3? 3 done? Yes, all done? Nudge your neighbour or tell them to hurry up and see if they've got the same. Apologies to the online audience that there's no handout that I can send through. Okay, so which was D? D was PREP. This is a way to structure a presentation. What does this stand for? Yep, make your point. And make the point again, actually. So a point, make your point, give a reason, give an example, and make your point again. Now, if you go back to those presentations I mentioned right at the beginning, like you want a day off work, or you want to go and see a different film from the one your partner wants to go and see, this might be a very little, snappy structure. Yeah? Make your point, give a reason, give an example, make it real, yeah? And make your point again. Okay, great. E, now, future dreams, how? What does that match with? The last one. Describe the situation. Great. Talk about an ideal scenario and then outline a proposed procedure. Yeah? So these have very different purposes, each of them. Okay. STAR with a double R. STARR. Yep. Great. Just for the purposes for the help of the online audience. So define the situation, describe the task, explain the action you took, show your results, and offer recommendations. And that might be offering a summary or reporting back on something. Okay? Fine. All right. Can we move on? Do we need to check anything? Okay, if you look over the page, you'll see some example presentations. You might have an extra one you'd like to add at number 7. Yeah? Okay. Can you think of, choose one of those and decide which 2 structures would work with that? So with the person next to you, choose one of those presentation types, or a different one if you like, one of the topics, and decide which structures 2 would work. Okay, I'll just give you about 1 minute. Choose the last one, please. Great. Choose the last one. Good, 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 good. Okay, let's have a look and see where you're at. So, did anyone choose 2? Introducing a plenary speaker at note. Yeah. What structures would work for introducing a plenary speaker? A or B. Yes, A is very straightforward. Say it, introduce it, say it, and then recap it. Or B is the WH questions. What questions would you use? You haven't got that far yet. Okay, don't worry. Anybody else choose that one? Plenary speaker.
How about E?
E, which is, yes, it could be. So where are we now and where do we want to get to? That might be nice with the future. Okay.
To clarify for the WH, who's going to speak? What are they going to talk about? Those WH questions.
It's very straightforward, actually. But doesn't it make sense? And it kind of helps you think, oh, well, I can do that then. Someone says, could you introduce the plenary speaker? Me? Yeah? But actually, who are they? Yeah? What are they going to talk about? Why did we invite them? Great. Nice. Really nice. Thank you. What about 5? 5, asking your boss for money to go to next year's IATEFL conference. You wouldn't dare? Yes, you would. D? D was make your point, give a reason, an example, and make your point again. Nice, good. Anything else that would work? And E? How the school benefits, that's right. So you need to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're talking to, certainly if it's this one, yeah? So how can they benefit? Because you're asking for money, yeah? Okay, at the front here, they're missing Hugh Deller's plenary at the end because they're going off drinking. How are you going to persuade each other? So this is topic 6. What structures were you going to use?
Using E, actually. Current situation.
Free knackered dreams of this bottle of fabulous red wine.
Proposed procedure, ignore you, drink.
Go drink.
I suspect you would want to join us.
Well, that's a problem.
Hugh's coming anyway.
That's a problem. Okay. Any other structures that would work for that? So for topic 6,
Maybe the WH questions.
could be the WH question. Yeah, could. What kind of wine? I think H is a good one. Yeah. So this is my position. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted. The problem is I can't possibly sit through yet another session. But look, this is a possibility. We could miss the session. Yeah? So it could be the 4 Ps. And that's quite a nice one. That works with lots of things. Okay, you get the idea. Yeah? Useful checklist. And if your presentation is logical to you and you make it logical to the audience, it's going to really help them follow it. They know where they're at. If you turn over, you've got a checklist of where we're at or what we're doing. Where are we at, actually? Where are we on this list on the other side? We've just done 4. Very good. Everyone's paying attention this morning. Fantastic. Okay. And this is another kind of checklist for you when you're doing a presentation. Okay. Great. Good. So moving hastily on. If we're on 4, then we're moving on now to how to involve the audience. We had some really nice examples from here before. How do you involve an audience in a presentation? Just enumerate some examples. Hands up. Ask a question.
Have them repeat key phrases.
Yes. Drill them. Get them to repeat things after you. Could you? Yep. What else?
Play a game.
Could be a game. Playing the music. Oh, he falls asleep, but it's nice. Okay.
Ringing a bell.
Yeah. That sounds like Jaws music.
Oh, you weren't there last night?
No, wasn't there? Like drumming.
There was music for an hour.
Oh, right. Okay. What else? Involving your audience.
Using balls.
Okay, yeah, so you can throw a ball right now, your turn, and then you have a go, and then you throw the ball to somebody else, and great. Thank you very much, okay. Good. Whoops, sorry. Anyway, it gets everybody involved. I think it belongs to this lady. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, sorry. Right, let me give you some other examples. So here are some examples. Yes, no, WH questions, or even rhetorical questions. If you have a rhetorical question, make sure you wait a little bit. Yeah? Otherwise, the rhetorical question doesn't do the job. The idea is to engage, to see those minds like a Swiss watch, so you can see the workings of the watch going round. Yeah? So engage your audience, perhaps just with a rhetorical question, or even just with the person next to you. 1 minute. Just talk about whatever. And it gives you time just to take a breath or whatever you need. Yeah? Okay. And these are some other ones. I'm going to give you 60 seconds, and I do, but my battery of my watch is dead today. 60 seconds to write down as many as you can think of. And that actually ups the pace. That's quite a nice waker-upper in a presentation. It takes a minute. And you can see some other examples there. Some of these we've done already today. Yeah? Okay. So we've done all that. We've done the structure. We know what the topic is and the angle we have on it. We know how we're going to get the audience involved. But we need to know how to start. And you can't actually plan the start, I don't think, until you've got the rest sorted out. So let's have a look at the start. And just check the timing. We're okay. Let's not worry about that one. So, how to start. 4 things I think are really important. This is a standard in presentations, so you may have come across this before, but it's quite useful. At the beginning of a presentation, it's useful to do 4 things, to remember 4 things. What do you think they are? A is for get your audience's attention. Good. B, how are your audience going to benefit? Now, you don't need to say, okay, and your benefit today is, yeah, you might not be overt about it, but your audience needs to know quite early on, what am I going to get out of this? What's in it for me? Yeah? C.
Communication, content.
C is for credibility. So you as the speaker, why are you in a position to talk about this topic? Yeah? What did I say at the beginning? Have I got the street cred to talk about this topic? What did I say?
You're not keen on presenting.
Yeah, that's a bit negative, but I did say that, yeah.
Gave us experience.
Yeah, I told you I had years and years of experience where things go wrong all the time and how I've worked out how to solve some of them. Okay, so that was my way of giving some street cred. D is for which is the structure, so what we're going to do. Great, and I think that really helps. That's a strong start at the beginning. SSS. This is not in all the textbooks. This is simply mine. My little SSS acronym. And the first S is for smile. Because when you smile, actually, pretty much everybody smiles back and you think, oh, God, they're not all alien after all. Yeah? It makes an enormous difference. But you have to consciously, I have it written at the top of this piece of paper. It says, there's a little smiley. It says, smile. And I smile, people smile back. The second one is slow. And that's because when I'm a little bit nervous, I tend to speak faster. So I have to slow myself down, and I have to remind myself to slow down. Now, the third S is something else I stole. It wasn't the S for steal, but anyway. The third S is, it's not actually, it's sound scripting. Now, you might have come across this. You might know Mark Powell. And let's have a quick look at this. So, you have a little bit of paper which has a text on it, and you've probably got a different piece of paper from the person next to you, which is intentional. There are 2 texts about Budapest. One is about Budapest, and one is about the underground, because I'm pretty keen on the underground, as you may know. What I'd like you to do, the instructions are at the top. I want you to look at the text. I'd like you to underline the words which you would stress if you were going to read this out. And I'd like you to put a slash where you would pause if you were going to read this out loud. Okay, so you're scripting the text as if you would read it and sound natural. Can I give you 60 seconds to do that? Okay, stop. With the person next to you, just read the bit of the text that you've done, exaggerate the stressed words, so you need to say them more loudly, and pause where you put a pause. Okay? About 30 seconds each. I'm going to steal 3 minutes of your coffee break. 30 seconds each. It's there's a half hour break, fortunately. But thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. As a listener, how did it sound listening to your partner stressing these words and marking the pauses? How did it sound? Did it sound good? Was it easy to follow? No? Yes? What was it like? Okay, so that's good. What was it like as the speaker, exaggerating those words and adding in the pauses? It's much more strange for the speaker, but actually for the listener, it's fabulous. Yeah? Yeah. Now, we won't talk about intonation today. It's one of my Hungarian pet topics because Hungarian intonation is so different from English intonation. So we won't talk about that. But this is a great start if you want, and I'm only talking about the start of a presentation. You don't want to read your lecture like they do at ELTE or anything like that. Yeah, you wouldn't dream of doing that. You might read the very beginning, the first paragraph, if you've sound scripted it like this. Because right at the beginning of the presentation, you're thinking, oh, who's here? People are still coming in. Oh, gosh, have I got toast and marmalade on my trousers or whatever this morning? And you need to know that what you're going to say is going to work. So you might write your intro, the first bit, and, I mean, mine's here. I've got bold bits and spaces all over the place. These are just my notes. But if I'm doing an important presentation, a big presentation at a big conference, the first paragraph, I will script. I'll show you in a moment. Here's one example, like this. Because then I can read this like an idiot. Yeah? And I know that it's going to sound okay. Now, you can use bold or you can use underlining or use both. I've done both here. Yeah? If you've got it written out, you can still do it in pencil or pen like you did here, or you do it on the computer. And these are the rules. Font 16 at least, because then you can look up and back very easily. Yeah? Double space it, and so on. And I find it super useful. Okay?
Could you go back one slide for just a second?
I could. Okay, I'm an expert these days on the Underground and St. Stephen because, no, not just because of the Underground, I'm an expert on St. Stephen and Esztergom because I just passed my Alkotmányos Alapismeretek exam, so that this is the basic rules of the Constitution, so that I can apply for citizenship. And I'm submitting my papers next week because then I can vote, yes! No, well, I wouldn't pass the English one. The British one, I'm not sure. Okay, we're nearly there. Great. So, how to finish? Top tips on how to finish. I have students who say, that's all. I think I've finished now. Okay. And they kind of really, 9 times out of 10, many people will do that. And it's not just secondary school students or university students. It's, people who with big jobs in big companies, important roles, actually haven't planned that last bit. And that bit is sometimes the only bit that people remember. So if that bit's wrong... Okay, so rule 1. Write it down. If you do nothing else, at least you've thought about it. Yeah, even if you've lost it, because usually you've lost it by the end. So write it down. But then there are a number of things you can do. Plan it, obviously. You might conclude, you might summarise. They're different. Yeah? But you might do one or the other. You might do both. You might come back to something you said right at the beginning. That's quite a nice wrapping up. And so on. Can you remember what the 7 top tips are? They're not in the right order here, but they are in an important order. With the person next to you, what was the first one? Structure. S for structure. Go through them. Ready? Okay, and the initial letter, the first letter of each one in this order, gives a nice little word. What a cliche. Good. The takeaway. Idea. You, the audience. You, the audience. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much for paying attention. I wish you lots of luck in any presentations you give or in this wisdom, ideas or tips that you pass on to people you're working with.